What is the weirdest thing a client has ever asked you as a vet tech? She asked me if her cat was sick because her poop tasted weird. A client asked me if they make condoms for cats because she didn't want to spay or neuter the brother-sister pair she had, but also didn't want them producing a litter either. That was a long day. A guy rushed his dog in, frantically letting us know that the dog had been bitten right next to his butthole by a copperhead snake. We took the dog back immediately to give pain meds and place an IV. While getting a full history from Dad, he casually mentioned that he heard somewhere that you can suck the venom out of a snake bite, so he had done so. He sucked his dog's asshole, trying to get the venom out. I've never been left so speechless in my life. A client told me her Shih Tzu's eye ulcer was a result of witnessing an exorcism. Exorcism eye ulcers can be healed with e-collars and eye drops, in case anyone needs to know. A college student asked me if female dogs are missing a rib the same way female humans are. Like he was referring to the idea that men are missing a rib because God took one of Adam's ribs to make Eve. A client once told me her dog must have an allergy to chicken because her farts smelled like chicken. I had an older guy at one of our clinics come in with a caterpillar and a Ziploc bag that he found in his backyard while letting his dog out and wanted to know if he came out of the dog. It was hard to keep a straight face that day. A guy once told me he gave his dog human mouthwash to keep his breath fresh. We had to politely let him know not to do that anymore. A client once asked me if her husband could get fleas because, and I quote, he is a very hairy man. A guy told me that his cat wasn't eating, so he smoked some weed and blew the smoke in his face to give him the munchies. She brought in her cat, saying he was sick because he didn't watch her put on makeup that day. Apparently, it was out of the ordinary. A man came in and asked if we had sex toys for dogs because he didn't want his male dog to be fixed or frustrated. An owner once asked me how old her kitten had to be to get her ears pierced. A client asked me if we gave their dog a sex change, in response to a freshly spayed female dog humping another spayed female dog. They returned the dog because he didn't want a male dog. The guy took care of dogs. He was just an idiot. I had a client bring in a severed cat leg in a Ziploc bag and ask me if I could reattach it to the cat. He didn't bring the cat. A client once asked me if her dog could catch general herpes if she came in contact with it. She was convinced her neighbor broke into her house and pooped in the litter box because the poop was way too big to be from my cat. She's a lady. A client once brought in their hamster because they were afraid that it was dead and not just hibernating. The little guy was in a very deep sleep. A client asked me what age it was appropriate to potty train a goat because she was tired of spending money on the diaper she was putting on him. Not a vet tech anymore, but we had this one guy who brought his dog in for the usual stuff. The dog was loaded with fleas, so we kept the dog for a few hours to give it 1 dose of Capstar, a pill designed to help kill fleas, a bath, and all that good stuff. The doctor had prescribed a couple more Capstars to be sent home. Guy picks up his dog later and goes home. Next day, I get a phone call from the same guy. He's telling me he's having a hard time giving the dog the pill. He kept saying, "It just keeps coming back out," which I thought was an odd way of saying the dog is spitting it out. I told him to try some cheese or wet dog food, whatever will get his dog to take it. He then gets a bit quiet on the phone. I thought it had to be put up his butt. We both laughed. Had an old man who brought in his Aussie for explosive diarrhea, and when we kept her for a few days, she'd recover and do fine. It was very puzzling for us, as, by all accounts, the dog was fine, albeit a little dehydrated and her ass was sore, but would go home and flare up again. No parasites, no history of disease, a healthy dog except for the butt juice. Found out he was feeding his dog a pint of butter pecan ice cream for dessert after her dinner every night. Dogs can't have ice cream? No, sir, they can't, and I'm surprised you didn't put together that your dog was farting poop all over the place immediately following her new dessert plan. Introduced him to doggy ice cream, so hopefully poor Jenny is doing better now. A guy called saying his dog's ear medication wasn't working, then discovered the owners were putting the tablets in its ears. Another time over the phone, an owner called up and said they were bringing their dog in because it had sprained a limb and asked for something to help it. They recommended frozen peas to soothe it. The dog turned up with a tin of peas strapped to its leg. A guy asked if we euthanized rabbits by hitting them over the head because I was going to do it myself with a brick, but I thought you doing it would be more effective. Needless to say, we had a very relieved owner when we explained we were not going to beat poor Bunny to death. A middle-aged woman ran in carrying a cat by its arms and sobbing hysterically. She ran over to the desk and, still crying, screamed that her cat had fallen out of a tree and was dead, so could someone please put it to sleep. Yes, she wanted someone to put her dead cat to sleep. By this time, the actual vet had come out of her office, and she took the woman and her cat into one of the surgeries. I followed because, hey, I wanted to see the dead cat. Unfortunately for my 8th grade self, the cat was not actually dead. The vet tried to explain this to the woman, but she kept insisting that her cat was dead and needed to be put to sleep. Eventually, the vet got fed up, walked over to the cat, who was lying on the table, and poked it. The cat jumped up and ran out of the office, out the open front door, and down the street. One of the vet's assistants jumped up and ran after it, and they did manage to catch it, and the woman was sent home a short while later with her still living cat. A client asked my vet for a refill for heartworm medication and commented that her dog's seizures have stopped completely, and it had to be from that. Oh, and she also wanted a refill on her phenobarbital tablets, seizure med, but she didn't understand what it did. The other tech and I had to pause after that. I had a guy who wanted to stay with their pet for the surgery recovery. We keep animals 24 to 48 hours after performing surgeries. When I explained to the owner that we can't leave a stranger in the business overnight, the guy asked to be locked inside the cage with the animal overnight. A guy was prescribed a liquid antibiotic for an ear infection and instructed him 3 times that they take it orally. They called that same day, saying, "My dog is whipping his head back and forth and all around. The medicine is getting all around the house. Is there a better way?" After asking questions, it clearly led to the fact they squirted the medicine directly into the dog's ear. I said, yes, it would help if it was orally administered. A client asked me if we had poo bags for the dogs because they didn't have one. Said client then proceeds to put the poo on the counter that she picked up with her bare hands. I had a client tell me that she didn't like giving her cats any medication that tasted bad. And yes, she personally tasted them, every single one. I was working, and a lady was telling me about her dog named Coco, who died at 4 years old, and how she was so shocked and sad about it. Ended her story with, "She was so cute. We named her Coco because she loved to eat chocolate." I promptly informed her chocolate is toxic to dogs. She said, "Oh, really?" but didn't seem to take me seriously. Too many to tell. Most memorable and insulting one. "My breeder has 20 years of experience. How many do you have?" She said that to me and the veterinarian. We had a client call to report they found a tick on their dog and were coming straight down. When they came in, they said, "Don't worry." We pulled it off. Turns out they had ripped off a nipple off their male dog and it was bleeding. When we told him what he had done, he was surprised to learn that male dogs had nipples. A woman's dog was very sick, so she called to make an appointment. She then asked if pets were allowed in the building since she was going to have a sick dog with her. The dog's better now, though, just bad infection that needed some antibiotics.